Good day and welcome back to Elementary 72 Gaming. Now, before I get into this video, I'd like to ask you all to please leave a like or comment on my video and consider subscribing to my channel. But beyond all of this, I'm about to hit a real heavy topic, and the topic is going to flow maybe the way I want it, maybe not the way I want it. And that is quite simple because this topic is going to cover the workshop. Now, in order to cover the workshop, I have to cover the 13 Warriors climb of the tower. Now, the 13 Warriors climb makes it very important for how the workshop functions, because the workshop has a primary function because of them, but it also had a primary function before them. So let's get into it. So the workshop actually is an organization which is on the outside of the tower, and it is also inside the tower at the same time. Their primary objective is to find out everything: how, why, when, where. That is the answers. That is what they're searching for in terms of their answers. And that means they're searching for the answer that everybody searches for, is who is their creator, why were they created, why are they in this tower, how are they in this tower, when were they in this tower, where did it all start, how did it all start. Every question that you can imagine. The heaviest questions ever possibly imagined. But their primary function in the tower as it stands is that question. The secondary function is building all these weapons. And why is it? It's because of the 13 warriors. Now, the 13 warriors are originally what Jahad and his companions were called, the 13 warriors. So let's get into this with a little bit of a tickle to this entire situation. So you have to understand that the climb of the 13 warriors plays a big part in how come the workshop is so big. When they entered, there was no climbing of the tower. When they climbed, they eventually had to get help from the artisans of the workshop, who went and reshaped their weapons to function within Shinsu. Needles were made in place of swords, right? So we know that Jahad most probably was a sword user, or a rapier user, needle type sword, right? The next thing that we know is REA family still use swords, and the greatest piece of work that was ever created by the workshop, by the hands of Maxeth, is the white ore, right? That is the sword that is given to REA Han. And then we know that there's armor inventories which would fit someone like Handolak Blood Matter much better because he is a defender. Then we know there's real inventories and observers and various other weapons that were made. But nonetheless, I'm not going to go through every weapon that we've seen. But nonetheless, all of this tells us that the 13 warriors brought in quite an extension of weapons. And these weapons were meant for them to conquer sea fish, things in water basically, which is kind of perfectly matched with what the tower has within it. So they knew something about what was inside the tower. The next thing which you need to know is when it comes to them starting the climb, they needed help from the workshop to keep going, right? Regardless of what you think about it. If Jahad and the rest of the 10 great families were anywhere near the rank of Balm, this is how you should compare them. When they boarded the Hell Train, they most probably all were around the same level of power, right? So Balm with the Thorn is actually an extension of what they would have had power like. But here is the catch. Balm's natural abilities have been majorly suspended, right? He was limited to train with one or two individuals. He trained up his Shinsu skills, he trained up one or two other abilities. If Balm had taken more time before he started climbing, if he had trained for 10 years on the outside, then jumped into the tower, then started his climb up, then trained again for another 10 years inside the tower, he most probably would be Evan Kel's level by the time he reached the Hell Train, right? Considering the difference between the 13 warriors and him, those are the differences that you need to take into note when you figure out how badly the workshop shaped everything for the 13 warriors, right? Consider this. When Balm came in, he took on a challenge solo, on his own. When the 13 warriors came in, they were a group of 13. Let's say that they fought the White Steel Ear. 13 versus 1. 1 versus 1 with an A rank weapon, right? Doesn't matter that the weapon was A rank, right? What really matters is the fact that Bam could beat that monster. The ball that he shattered was beyond A rank, right? So an S rank ball most likely was what he had to pop. It's an impossibility, right? Because nobody can actually break it. Most likely what Jahad and the 13 warriors faced was a D or E rank ball that would easily pop when they hit it with one of their weapons. But Bam had to face something incredibly higher, and he most probably would have done it without activating the Black March. Because remember, the Black March activating in his hand only released the power that he had through it. So his power was huge to start with. A lot of people don't get this. A lot of people say that Bam wasn't that powerful, but the reality was Bam was unbelievably powerful. He was weak in the sense of his physical body, but he has powers that were beyond his level of his body. He didn't even understand them as yet. By the time he reaches the second floor, he's evading and fighting, and the way he was moving, he had an instinct that was beyond regular individuals. He managed to evade getting killed by knowing he had to run and move, without even knowing what was happening. And he asked the Black March for its power again, just after having used it, and immediately at that point someone ended up sniping the guy who was about to kill him. And his luck would seem that he would win, but it's more like he has a secondary power, something that's changing the fate around him. And we have to think about this for the 13 warriors as well. When they first came in, there was no second floor deathmatch. They would have had to have fought one of the administrators' tests, like what they ended up going through. But when they reached it, they would have realized that the first test took them very long to complete, and they needed some time to rest and figure out how to go about finishing the second floor exam. At this point, they most probably decided to start learning some skills, looking around at what's going on, and that's when they most probably discovered Shinsu. And when they discovered this, they started using it and they found powers. And when they did this, they managed to learn a little bit more, and they finally started climbing the tower. Right past second floor, third floor, fourth floor, 20th floor is most probably the place where they reached a very great challenge. Something really difficult, which is why they leave it as the E rank regular beginning point. So thinking about it, you have to think of their levels going up in this way. They were regular till that level, and they were quite powerful regardless. They were crazy powerful until they reached this level. The Princesses of Jahad are another story altogether. Jahad had a lot of physical strength to start off with when he entered the tower, most probably, and a very powerful body. But nonetheless, compared to Bam, he's the exact opposite. Bam has an immense amount of power, a weak body, and no physical strength. And now all of a sudden, Bam has immense physical strength, immense power, and an immense body as we've gone up to this point where he's at the cage. He's actually already on the level of high rankers. Right? Now, if you think about this carefully, Bam's development most probably rivals what the best of them could have done. So he's most probably far more powerful than Jahad. He's actually ahead of Yurick Mazino in his climb by most predictions. Remember, Yurick Mazino took 50 years to climb the tower, so he was 50 years through from start to end. Bam, on the other hand, is just under 25 years through, halfway through the tower basically. He's almost past the 63rd floor. If this continues, I think it's the 21st year that he's in the tower. If this continues at this rate, and Bam manages to keep climbing instead of fighting battles all the time, Bam most probably could complete his climb of the tower in the next 2 years. Remember, he's already as powerful as a ranker. There is no way he has to worry about anybody interfering with him. Even if he had to go up against most high rankers, they're going to struggle with fighting him. So he can go all the way up and become a ranker and keep leveling himself up after he's completed his climb of the tower, unite the 13 months and go up. But now we have to go back to the 13 warriors, because there's key things to talk about with them in regards to the workshop. If it wasn't for the influence of the workshop on them, they wouldn't have been able to all complete their revolutions. 2 of the members of the team supposedly completed a revolution on their own. We know for a fact that Edwan is the one who managed to complete a revolution all on his own. We know that Gustang mastered Shinsu quality. Right, so Gustang is responsible for part of their development. Edwan is one of those who had mastered revolution, right? So he is the reason why there's so much of power in him and why he was so difficult to handle. Jahad's revolution was handled by the Guardian, the god of guardians. And this tells you that if it wasn't for the workshop, they wouldn't have been as powerful as they were. Yes, same thing applies for Bam. If it wasn't for this, he wouldn't have been as powerful as he was. He wouldn't have learned the Shin Tzu Black Hole Sphere. But remember one other thing. When they fought on the train against Guardians, they fought as a team. 13 on 1. Just consider that very carefully. If you count how much of power is divided between them, 13 to 1 is quite a good odd to fight on the train. But Bam was 1v1ing the Guardians. 1v1ing any threat that came at him for a full month without rest. And then he took on the training from the Guardian, which could have killed him. Right? And then he took on somebody who was incredibly, unbelievably overpowered for him to have to go against in the form of White. So yeah, there's it. 4 major challenges that he faced off against that they would have never have faced off against, making him really that much more powerful. Obviously this sounds like more like a Bam is powerful video, but we have to consider it when we're thinking about the workshop. Now, I'm not exactly explaining the workshop's influence on this here, but consider this. By the time Jahad left the train, he was as powerful as Bam was. That means the development the train gave the 13 warriors was equal to a level up that great, right? Whether or not it was a complete revolution for Jahad makes no difference. He became as powerful as Bam was at the end of that trip. Actually, it was weaker than Bam. But nonetheless, he did complete his revolution to that point where he was at that level. Thinking of it, Bam succeeded in going beyond, and he could still go. He still had more power. He still had the ability to keep fighting. He didn't even unleash the second thorn to make it even more, I'm holding one hand back. And in case you think that the thorn is an overpowered weapon, Jahad had Lucilius. I'm not exactly sure on the name of it, but he had his sword, which was given to him, the needle. On the other hand, he had other irregular teammates, which is also OP as OP can be. So thinking about all of that, Bam is really giving us something to think about. And think about Bam's progression versus where they were progressed thanks to the workshop, right? The workshop had helped 13 irregulars become unbelievably powerful. He taught them skills that were beyond their regular rank of ability. And because of this, they became who they became at the end of it. Right? The last station is something which never happened to them. It only happened to Bam because of the coincidences of his situation. The hidden floor is something that was special. That's also a major reason for Bam's boost up. Remember, he was in there for a matter of a few minutes or so, and that gave him about 1.5 months worth of training. So yeah, that was like a hyperbolic time chamber moment if anybody is a Dragon Ball Z fan. So yeah, that was the reality of what the workshop was responsible for. But then we're still missing some key parts. The weapons that they made was so well suited to the individuals that they made it for that it enhanced their abilities. So think about it. When it comes to our rare individuals like, let's see, from the 13 warriors, who am I thinking of right now? His name, I'm really sorry about this, I get confused like this every once in a while. 13 warriors, Hendolak. If you consider blood metal, when his power is considered, if you gave him a sword, it was pointless. If you gave him an axe, yeah, it might be worthwhile. If it's a double-headed axe, you can use it as a shield. But when it comes to the fact that in the tower they gave him an armor inventory, it makes his ability more spectacular. Because he is a defender, he can now defend his team and he is defended. So he doesn't have to focus all his defense with himself included. He can spread it out around him while reducing the amount of defense directly applied to himself, allowing the armor to take some of the hit for him. And those are the things that the workshop did. Besides all of this, when they finally reached the top, they created the 13-month series. Ashel Eduardo is a member of the workshop. So the 13 months is a creation of the workshop. They also are responsible for the Rings of Jahad. So there is yet another massive aspect of the workshop. All of these things are all by the influence of the workshop. In the next video, I'm directly going to talk about the workshop and how they are directly such a mysterious organization. Because talking about them on their own, the video makes no sense. I actually did it without including this whole story, and this is what it sounds like. So they built the Hell Train, they put on guardians on it, and one of the guardians trained them. They're super irregulars. Do you want to compare them to Bomb? Nah, it doesn't make a difference. Why do they need the guardians? Obviously, it made no sense. So when I give it to you in the next episode, I'll explain what they've been up to and why they most likely helped the climb of the tower. So catch you all then and have a good day.